Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of My Matters with Kay. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to Lynette Trawick's husband, who was on the show last week. She is a HIV and AIDS advocate and someone who just so happens to be HIV positive. So, here is her prized husband, her supportive husband, Daniel. Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Of course, you're welcome. How are you today?
I'm great. Like life is life, but I'm amazing. I'm amazing. I'm blessed to be alive today.
Man, listen, and life is life, and life will never stop lifing.
Never.
So I get that,
Yes.
100%. I had to pray
Yes.
before this interview because I was in a little funk. So I get it.
I understand. Yep.
Get it. I get it. So when Lynette and I spoke on her episode, she gave a backstory of you guys being friends first,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how did you feel when she opened up and told you that she was HIV positive?
Whew, that's a big story on my end. So she has, her story and her timeline of events. I have
Okay.
my story and my timeline of events.
Okay.
So it was in 2013, the beginning of 2013, I was actually told and found out that my father was living with HIV.
Oh,
So that kind of took me on the loop. My past experience was on the ignorant side, back in the early 90s and, watching movies like Philadelphia and things like that and seeing the cycle of what HIV was portrayed as and how it overtook our community. And I unfortunately had to watch my older cousin go through that same exact phase of contracting the HIV virus, it progressing into AIDS, him getting real sick, lesions, getting skinny, and passing away. And that was my view of HIV as a child because that's what I
that's
saw in my personal life as well as in TV and media. So when my father was diagnosed, I don't know exactly when he was diagnosed, but when I found out about his diagnosis, it kind of hit me. It hit me pretty hard. I'm a daddy's boy. My dad was a very old man. He was born in the 20s, and
really.
yes, I know.
So
He was
wait, I'm
born
sorry. I don't mean to interject, but how old was he when he had you?
52 when I was
Dad
born.
wasn't playing, honey. Okay, he was still
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
his
no. No, I'm one of his 13 kids, something like that. So, old school, a lot of kids,
yeah,
big
yeah.
large family. But
Let's don't. I got
growing
you.
up, I was the kid with the real old dad. And so in elementary school, you know, parents coming to pick the kids up and they're like, your grandpop's here. I'm like, no, that's my dad. But the funny part about that is that I played every sport growing up. I ran track, played basketball, football, baseball, soccer. I did everything. And it took me until my dad was about 70 until I was actually able to beat him in racing. So he
Okay,
was
Dad.
really in great shape. And hearing about his diagnosis, I was worried because he was like Superman to me. He never really got sick to what I was able to see. Um, his definition of pain didn't really exist to me. I
Mhm.
used to work with him. He did landscaping. I'll be out in the garden working with him, and he'll cut his whole hand open. There's blood everywhere. He'll just wipe it off and go back to work. So that
Oh,
was my view of my dad. He was like Superman to me. Um,
yeah.
when I found out about his diagnosis, I was a little worried, because he was definitely older at that time. He was mm, late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around that time, that age. So, I was a little worried. But he told me that it was okay if I went to the doctors with him. And that's when I got my crash course in the education on HIV. So I went to the doctors with him and found out a little bit more of the medical aspects of it versus, what I knew from the past, and I was still ignorant. So that happened early 2013,
Okay.
and October 2013, it was the AIDS walk in Philly that happens every year and annually. And Lynette had a team that she used to have come out every year, and she had a big team. A whole lot of us would come out and support. And at that point in time, I didn't know about her status. It was just something that she supported, and that was my BFF. So I was going to rock out. So I went to the AIDS walk with her one year, and a day or two after the AIDS walk, she sent me a newspaper link from the Philadelphia Inquirer, saying, "Read this." And I'm like, "Hold up, what's this?" Like, just click on it and read it. I'm like, "Okay." So I click on it and read it, and it's her sharing her story briefly at the AIDS walk. So she was interviewed, and that's when she disclosed to me. That's how she disclosed to me. I felt a lot of different emotions at that time, because even though I had that minuscule level of education because of my experience with my father, I was still ignorant to a lot of the reality of it. The medical aspect of knowing numbers and statistics and all of that is all good and well, but the life aspect of it is a completely different thing. The reality, people is people. It's not just numbers. It's actually people that's dealing with this. So I was angry for a second, for one, and I'm still a little feeling. I feel some kind of way about it to this day. Like, you couldn't tell me to my face, man. Dang.
She was afraid. She was
I get
afraid.
it. I get it. But dang, I thought we was better than that. You feel me? But no, that's how she disclosed. And the ignorant thoughts came through my mind because me and my kids were always around her and her kids, so we was really close knit group of friends. I was almost like uncle. She was like aunt. Pretty much
Okay.
were. We were like brother and sister. We were that close. And just the thoughts of, dang, the ignorant thoughts of stigma that comes, using the bathroom with someone, eating off the
Yeah.
same dishes, which you still hear about today for some odd reason. People still have that kind of stigma, like, no, this is your dishware, you can use this. If you use the bathroom, you have to Lysol everything. Like, it's just real
Yeah.
extra, unnecessary.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I still was pretty ignorant outside of just the medical terminology of stuff. It was like, all right, or am I good? My kids good? Or is everybody good? But then
Yeah.
it was just more so along the lines of, are you good? Because, the thing that I got from my father's doctor's appointment was the biggest thing that I took with me. As long as he's taking his medication and he's undetectable, you have nothing to worry about. He's good. And he was undetectable. Um, so that's what I felt, knowing that part. It just be there to support. And so I said, as long, whatever I can do, I'm here to support you, and we good. So that was 2013, um, and I was actually in a relationship, about to get married at that time to someone else.
Oh.
Uh, so yeah, it wasn't like she disclosed to me when we were already in a relationship. It was still just on a friend level,
Yeah.
and
No, she made that clear. She made that
yeah,
clear
yeah,
that you guys were just like really good friends, kind of like
mm-hmm,
best friends in a sense.
yeah,
But I want you to know, like, the feelings that you felt, of course, were natural, right? Because I think that
mm-hmm,
a lot of us were and are ignorant to the fact that I know with the interview that she and I did, she educated me on a lot of the things that I didn't know, because, like you said, with certain depictions, historics, such of that nature, you have this ideology of it being, you look like you're sick basically, and she's
mm-hmm.
beautiful, she's amazing, she's healthy looking,
Thank you, thank
like,
you. Yeah,
you're
she is.
welcome.
That's my
She
joint right
is.
there. Yeah,
Oh snap! You called her a joy. I'm
yeah,
gonna
that's
fight
that's
you.
that's my joint.
She's very well poised, well spoken. But yeah, just the level of education that she provided, not only to me but to the viewers, I think it can start to change the trajectory of what we think HIV is and looks like. Um, And it also attests to that there really are some great people out there because, like you said, initially it was, yo, like, are we good? I think that would be anyone's initial thought, especially when you don't know about the
Mm-hmm.
HIV virus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. But just the fact that you were supportive and you got over, your own personal feelings. Um, how long do you think it took you to, or how long did it take you to get over that hump of her not telling you, or her telling you, and you feeling your feelings of she didn't tell you to your face, or the fact that she
I
did have
I
it, like.
honestly, I don't have ill feelings towards that. I still bring it up because I can go back to that moment and be like, Dad, why didn't you tell me to my face? But overall, the feelings left in a couple days. I don't
Oh,
harbor
okay.
feelings like that. It was just like, all right, cool. I'm gonna make sure you good. I'm here. Um, Help support in any kind of way you need me. If I need to be a shoulder, if I need to be an ear, if you want me to go to the doc, whatever it is, I'm here. And that's pretty much what it was. A couple days
And that's
after.
and that's because you guys were on a friendship level. It wasn't an
Mhm.
intimate relationship at that time.
Nah, nope.
So how did that transcend from friendship level to romantic level, especially with knowing her status? Like, how did that get together? How did that co-mingle?
Okay, so I'm gonna give the real brief version of the story. She doesn't like me to tell a long drawn out story, because I have no filter sometimes, so I need to make sure I'm good. So this is what happened, right? In the midst of that relationship that I was in, I had got married. It didn't work out. I got divorced, and so this is
Okay.
the next year. I was only married for about 4 months, and it was
Dang.
one of those situations where I was seeking God in a certain kind of way, and God wasn't present when the enemy showed me what I thought God was showing me. And,
Mm.
it was one of those deep situations. So I'm celebrating my divorce. I'm celebrating my 30th birthday. And, me and my boys were planning to go to Vegas for my 30th birthday and to celebrate my divorce. We was going to do it all at that time. So me and a couple of my boys had made the plans, and Lynette was like my other boy. She's my sis. I'm like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
you come out too. We gonna all go. And so I invited her, and I invited my niece as well, who was about 22 at the time. That's like my baby niece,
Okay.
my mini me. And so last minute, both of my boys backed out. So I'm in Vegas with Lynette and my niece, and it was a lot going on. But moral of the story: what happened in Vegas didn't stay in Vegas. Um, we came back and we was together. I said it like that for a reason, and that was just the reality of it. But even in the midst of everything, because from the time that I found out about her status as well, I educated myself a little bit more to help to be more supportive for my dad and that whole process. And you know, she uh she was taking her medication, semi consistently. As long as I knew that she was, I was good. And it never really crossed my mind at no point ever in my
Really?
relationship did I ever feel like I was going to contract the virus. Not even a little bit.
That is a very interesting statement because I was going to ask that next. Like, were you in fear of being intimate? So, what if that never crossed your mind? You guys are what, 15 years in now?
We've known each other 15 years. We've been together 10.
10. Okay. So, if that's never crossed your mind, not one time, where do you think that comes from? Because I think it would be human nature for that to be a thought.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the majority of the people, even still, I see this post going around social media right now with Magic Johnson and his wife Cookie talking about he said that she never cheated on him, and everybody with their ignorant, stigmatized statements about, well, we all know why because blah blah blah. But for me, my faith is extremely strong. When they talk about faith of a mustard seed, I have that times. My
Mm.
faith is extremely strong, and I believe and I trust in God that I will never, ever be put in that situation. So it never crossed my mind, never thought about it. It's just like I know God got me, and outside of that, it was more so, all right, I know God got me, but let me make sure God got her as well as me having her, making sure that she's doing her part to make sure that I'm good as well. And yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, yeah.
Fun
You're a good
journey.
guy. You're
Yeah,
a great
everybody
guy.
thinks I'm crazy, but that's
You might be a
okay.
little crazy, of course. It's like you gotta have a
Yeah,
balance there, right?
yeah,
So, like,
yeah,
balance is out. You can't be all the way perfect.
yeah. And 10 years ago when we got together, it was just more so my faith at that time. But then different terminology started to come to light, such as um, treatment as prevention, where as long as someone's taking their medication, that's the way to prevent transmission of HIV. So when it become undetectable, then you're good. And then about 7 years ago, a statement came out called U equals U, which is undetectable equals untransmittable. And they're saying now that if you've been undetectable for at least 3 months straight, there's a 0% chance that you can transmit the HIV virus, especially through sexual contact. 0%. Zero. So, you know,
And
before
for how
those
long?
things came to light, hmm?
Indefinitely, or is there a certain time frame?
No,
If it's
0%.
indefinitely.
Yep, you equals you. As long as you're taking your medication and you're undetectable, you cannot transmit the virus.
Wow.
The advancement of medication, right?
I
Is
was
going
about to
from
say, yes, science and everything really
mhm,
evolved into
yes,
something great.
yes,
Wow.
yes. But even
Okay.
still with that, we're still believing and trusting that there will be a cure and that at some point HIV will be eradicated and it won't exist at all. So
Well, I will say I'm sure they have a cure, but the government makes money off of medicating folk. But that is another topic for another day because we would be all day on that.
yes,
I'm
indeed. That's
sure
good
with the
business.
it's been some years and decades since HIV came out. Can't tell me that they can't put two and two together. I'm sorry. That's just crap. But they're making people kind of like how when people have cancer and they go for like radiation and what's the other one? It's radiation and
The chemo.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that, like making them comfortable. So it's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. It seems like the same thing. Again, it's medication, so it's returning patients, which means the return. So yeah, but we'll get into that another time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you mentioned, so I know Lynette said you guys have 11 kids. So before you guys started having your own kids, how many kids did you have and did she have, and did you guys have together?
Uh, that's such a loaded question because we have 11 kids and we don't break it down. She had hers, I had mine, and then we got together and we had one together. But outside of that, we have 11. Her
Man, you
kids and
guys
my
are
kids, my
the
kids and her
Black
kids.
Brady Bunch.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And we've been around each other for so long. Our kids grew up with each other, and the dynamic in the beginning was a little weird. The shift to us being in a relationship was a little weird in the beginning with the kids, and then it was just like it's just normal, everyday stuff.
When you say weird in terms of because you guys were like aunt and uncle, now you're ma and pa.
Yeah, the transition was weird. The transition was a little weird in the beginning. The dynamic of kids being around a little bit more than they were before, me being around a little bit more than I was before, and all of those kinds of things. The transition was a little rough in the beginning, but it didn't last that long. It didn't last that long because we already had a relationship and everybody already loved and had respect for each other, so it just made it a lot easier because of that friendship that we had and that relationship that we had.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So with I know you mentioned that um contracting the virus was never on your radar, never was a thought. So when Lynette conceived, did you ever consider the possibility of your child, you guys' child having the virus?
No, it didn't cross my mind either. When we first decided that we wanted to have a child together, we went to her doctor and we had different conversations. They ran different tests and different things like that. Um, so outside of the medical side of making sure that everything was good before we attempted to even start, because at the point she had to change her medication to a different medication. And then during the pregnancy, her medication became resistant that she was taking because the baby was taking all the medication from her that she was taking in. And so she became resistant to the medication. So she had to switch medication to a different medication. But overall, no, no thoughts. And the process was, it was harder on her than it was for me because she, harbored the feelings of what she was exposing her baby to, rather
Yeah,
than the so she had those fears. Now she had those fears about me contracting the virus as well. But I'm
right.
I'm 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 I'm, I'm extremely strong in my faith, and I'm very reassuring. I'm good. We good. God got us.
I
I ain't
love
got no
it.
worry.
I love it. I love it. You listen, if no one else can ever say that they don't have faith, like your testament is would be sufficient because it's just it's kind of, how can I explain it? It's just not really, in a sense, not human nature. Like people don't, again, I think that not think it, your faith has a lot to do with it, because when you know God got you, God got you. And if you're speaking to God and you're praying and doing different things, God will reassure you. But some people don't have that level of confidence and or faith. So I think that says a lot, like even with Lynette, I was telling her, like a lot of the things she was saying, I feel like that was it had a lot to do with her character, and you guys are great
Mm-hmm.
people, like you guys are great
Thank you.
people, and you guys seem
Appreciate
loving and fun, and so like it's awesome. Like you're gonna make
it. And
my
that's
faith
just
a
who
little
we are.
higher,
Yeah,
huh?
and that's who we are. I had a quote that I created years back, just from my journey, being a speaker in the HIV and AIDS field, educating people, and also being a minister as well. It's, there's salvation and transparency. So my story, your story has the ability to save someone's life, whether it's on a faith-based level of them receiving salvation, or if you're in the middle of going through a storm that you thought you was by yourself and you hear somebody else has gone through that same storm and they came out on top, and it's like, oh no, all right, I can probably make it through too, because of, if they were able to do it, then maybe I can do it. So
Right.
salvation comes in different forms, but our story has the power to save people lives,
Absolutely does.
save lives.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And I think the beginning of it is the education, right?
Mm-hmm,
Because again, when you have this certain image in your mind of what something looks like, and then you realize through education, through someone who
mm-hmm,
actually went through it, like Lynette went through it, but you also went through it with her. So just to get different perspectives, although the education aligns with what both of you guys said, but just getting different viewpoints of it, I think is the first step to people um, opening up,
mm-hmm,
opening their minds to going to get tested, because a lot of people live in fear. People would say, if they got it, they don't want to know, because it's a mind over matter thing. So if people
mm-hmm,
hear that, if they can, they'll see Lynette, be like, dang, like I wouldn't, because I told her, yeah, on the last episode, I'm like, I would have never looked at you and considered you HIV positive. I never would have done that, right?
mm-hmm,
But that was my ignorance. So
mm-hmm.
if people can look at her and see how she's vibrant and fruitful and can articulate very well, and she's in a positive space despite her reality, I think that that can also begin to open up doors for people to go get tested.
Mm-hmm.
And the more people that get tested and know their status, I think the longer their life will be. Because if that virus is just running around rampant in your system, there's no telling what could happen. But if you catch it and get on medication, maybe they too, not maybe, but they too would have a more fruitful life by knowing
Yep.
instead of
Yep.
disregarding.
That's real, and being connected to care and community makes a world of difference, because that's where you still hear about the negative stories of people suffering with HIV, is because they isolate themselves and aren't connected to care and aren't around supportive people, and so they just go away by themselves, and that's when the sickness really attacks them, because people who are connected to care, who are in community, have a much higher chance of living a better life, as opposed to people who isolate themselves and just allow stigma to overtake them. And because there's so much information out here, it's the fine line between miseducation and lack of education versus what's the right education and what's truth. It's so much untruth being spewed out here all over the world. Um, it just makes it
Yeah,
real difficult for people to really get the right information.
yeah.
And so I'm,
But
I'm
I think
grateful for platforms like this, because you have people who are in the field, someone who's living with the virus, who can actually educate from that perspective, rather than just a medical professional who went to school and learned some numbers and some stats.
right,
It's a different world.
experience is the best,
Hmm.
like, and I 100% agree with you on that, because even with my mental health advocacy, it's like, you could go to school for being a therapist, a psychiatrist, or what have you. And I'm not mitigating their degree, right?
Hmm.
But I know for me and a lot of other people, experience is really the best teacher, because you're not only educating us about what the subject matter is, but you're also giving us the emotional side of it too. The emotional,
Hmm.
the psychological, the physical aspects of what you're educating people on. So I think that plays a major role, more
Yeah.
than the people who went to school and studied for it. I think that it'll be taken differently from a person who's actually living it and can give you insight from a different angle. Also, you said something not too long ago about some people just go away by themselves and they just kind of close off. I think too, because I know when Lynette and I were talking, she had mentioned the fear of isolation, so she didn't tell people, right? But what you just said is kind of like the opposite. So people know, or maybe they don't know, but the person knows. So now maybe they withdraw because of the fear of isolation, or just out of fear of not knowing what to expect, simply because of what society has depicted for over 20 years, 40
Hmm.
years. So I
Yeah.
think that it becomes a situation of mind over matter at that point, because if you're strong minded, like, and or anchored in faith, I don't care what faith you're in, if you have a higher power that you can rely on and as unveiled, I think that makes all of the difference in terms of how you navigate this situation in front of you, right?
Yes. Yep.
Because there are going to be good days and there are going to be bad days, even
Hmm.
as a mental health advocate. Like I said before we got on camera, I really had to pray because I have really been in a funk. And that's okay. Like, I understand, we're going to have our good days, or we're still human beings.
Hmm.
So I think when people are able to channel their mind and control their minds instead of letting the mind control you, you are receptive to it better and you can navigate it differently. Instead of feeling
Yes.
sorry for yourself, you can go and be proactive and
Hmm.
educate yourself and get the medicine so you can really live a bountiful life.
Yes, yes, definitely. I know. Speaking on a couple things that you just mentioned, the faith aspect of healing is one of the highest things. People who have a faith and a higher power that they worship, they have a much higher success rate of getting through different health issues.
Yes.
And on the other thing that you were talking about, the unfortunate reality is that in my 11 years of educating, medical professionals have been the most ignorant about the virus.
Really? how
Absolutely.
how so?
Nurses and doctors, they don't know the human aspect. They just know what the numbers are.
They just know
And so they
science.
just look at statistics and numbers in that aspect. They have no understanding of how it really works in the real world. It's unbelievable.
But the funny thing is with statistics, like, statistics is what's reported. So that's the problem
Mhm.
with statistics. It's not inclusive, right? because not everyone gets tested. Not everyone knows their
Mm-hmm.
status. Not everyone follows up. So they're going, but like you said, that is ignorant. So you can kind of have like a baseline for statistics. Like with me, like before I do a show, I always research and I'll educate myself. Excuse me. But that's just a baseline because people have to realize, well, the medical professionals have to realize that there are so many other cases that's not included in that number. Further, everybody doesn't have the same immune system, so that diagnosis, it may not equal out to this diagnosis. This
Mm-hmm.
person may everything is a contingency on a lot of different
Yep.
things. Your
Yep.
DNA, your mindset, your immune system. There's a whole host of things that go into that. But that's what's scary about the medical field. But you see, they call it practice, right? They practicing on us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. I know. We are just talking about that the other day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's the
It's
reality
crazy.
because
It's crazy.
they
It
don't
is.
know everything until they experience it. And if you don't
Absolutely.
experience certain things, you won't really know because, I done seen a million TV shows, which are fictitious, but a lot of it has truth in it. Like if you study certain things in school, you just study certain things in school. But when you're placed in a situation, and like you said, everybody's different, everybody's body's different, no one reacts to stuff the same way. So
Yeah.
you're in here trying to figure stuff out. You practicing what you were taught because you really don't know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Until you practice and you see the results.
Yeah.
So yeah, like people have to be very cognizant of certain terminology. Practice
Mm-hmm.
is there for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but the good thing, but but what makes that all of, I'm not going to say irrelevant, because we serve a higher power and that's our doctor. So no matter what happens, I always feel like God got me. So like I'm his, and something happens to me today, I'm going to be good regardless. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
sometimes God will work through the doctors, so
Mm-hmm.
that's where your faith comes into play, because I think when you go through certain circumstances, especially ones that are like detrimental, you need a higher power, because if you don't have no higher power, nothing to anchor you, you're going to just fly off the handle.
Yep. Yep.
There was a guy, this was like in like the early 2000s. I forget his name. I actually read it in the paper, and I also seen that because I've worked in Trenton, and I seen like all of the police and ambulance taped off, and it was this guy who was just, I don't know if he was just told or he recently found out that he was HIV positive or AIDS. I don't know which one it was. And
Mm-hmm.
he sat in his car and he shot himself in the head. So I think that those types of I can't judge. I don't know him. I don't know the circumstances, and I don't know what his faith was. But I think that when people don't have that faith, those are the type of things that can occur, because you don't have that bond. You don't have that reliability of knowing, or you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be good regardless. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy. Everybody.
it's that level of support and relationship. When someone who truly has a relationship with you is there for you, you can feel that versus some superficial. I'm just here for whatever reason. Like when you truly have that relationship, you can feel a difference, and
Yeah.
that connection makes a world of difference. It makes a world of difference,
Yeah.
and I've always put God first in everything, especially with
Excellent.
my relationship. Uh, and I'm proud of the journey that we've been on because we're about to celebrate 10 years of marriage,
Mm.
and that's a monumental thing for me. You know,
Absolutely is. Absolutely is. I love
yeah.
it. I freaking love it. So speaking of love it, how did your mom feel when you told her about being with someone who is HIV positive?
Whew, now I'm trying to think back because it was the before we were together versus when we got together. So my mom, she's like Lynette, one of my best friends, always been around. So my mom knew her prior to us getting together.
Hmm.
And before she found out about her status, it was, why aren't y'all together? I'm like, what do you mean? Why aren't we together? Like, moms apparently know. My mom and her
Yep.
mom apparently
Yep.
knew that we
Yep.
were supposed to be together, but we wasn't trying to hear all that. Like, ew, no, like we just friends. Like,
Yeah. That's my bro. That's my sis.
yeah,
What?
like no, like why aren't y'all together? I'm like, cuz like for what? Like, and that was that. And then,
Yeah.
after she found out about her status and she was still around and different things, my mom was more so like, okay, so why aren't y'all together? Like, is that the reason why? I'm like, no. Like, so
Really?
even though she knew about her status, she still was wondering why we weren't together because she's a woman of faith as well, and she just saw whatever she saw. And after we got together, it was like it's like a combination of, okay, good, finally y'all together because y'all should have been together, and okay, I'm still a little worried because my son's life is in your hands now. And
Yeah.
so she had mixed emotions and feelings, and she's spoken about it at Lynette's event before. She was one of the speakers at one of her event and shared her perspective of being a mother of a child who comes home to tell mom that they're in a relationship with someone who's HIV positive, who's living with HIV. So it was kind of a mixed bag of apples and oranges.
Mhm. Of
It was
course.
mixed, but
Of course.
overall, she's been supportive. My mom loves her more than she loves me. I've come to the reality of understanding and knowing that.
You stepchild.
Um, so my family calls me Lynette's husband. That's what
Oh
my
my
family calls me. So they all love her more
God.
than they love me. So I
That is
guess I
hilarious.
made the right decision based on their point of view and
Yeah.
perspective. But
And that's great that you have that support.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, everybody wasn't supportive though. A lot of people did have the questions of, all right, all these women out here, you an attractive guy, like why would you be with her? Like, why not? Like HIV doesn't define her. She is not a HIV positive person. She is Lynette, who just so happens to be living with HIV. But you've been around her. She's amazing. She's beautiful. She just is just light, and everyone is attracted to her light. And like, why would I not want to be with her? She's amazing. So I
Oh
can
my
put
God.
people in their place real quick because
I know
like
that's okay.
that's my
Don't mess
shorty. You
with it.
feel me?
Yeah,
That's
don't
my
mess with his John. What?
yeah.
You
So
better leave his John alone. What?
and that was the reality. Some people just wasn't supportive of it. Like why? Like
Yeah.
why not? But they all
And
love her now.
right. And you not
Mhm.
ever like any decision you make in life is not always going to be okay in someone else's eyes, but you have to live for you. If you can justify why you want to be there and what makes you, that's all that matters. No one else's opinions matter. You
Mhm.
know, you could take into consideration considering who it is, like your mom, your children. But if it's like people outside of that, what? Sit down somewhere, mind your business.
Yep.
You know?
Consideration. But at the end of the day, even the way we teach our kids, like your life is your life, your decisions are your decisions. We can't make decisions for you as you grow. You'll make your own
Right.
decisions, but we're always going to be here to support you. And
Right.
it's the same way. My mom and myself, we had that kind of relationship. We were really close, and I could talk to her about anything, always could. And it was just at that point where it's like, okay, this is what I'm doing, and that's what it was. And she had more of a fear when we decided to have a child. She was more worried about the baby in that aspect because that's a whole different level of medical stuff going on and faith over there outside of just our part. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
she had feelings about that, and she expressed them, and everything's good though. Everything's good. That's her
Thank
baby.
God.
That's her
That's
baby.
good. And how old are you? It's a girl.
Boy,
Boy, how old is he now?
Koa will be 8 next month.
Oh,
So
oh,
he's 7, about to be 8.
okay, 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 okay.
Yeah.
I
And
love it.
and I don't know if Lynette shared, but he's not living with HIV. He's HIV negative. He was born HIV negative. 10 years later, I'm still HIV negative, not living with HIV. Um, so outside of what God does, the reality is because medication has advanced so much from where it was that
Mhm.
it's not that big of a deal in the sense of life isn't over, but the same way with any other STIs or anything, you don't want it. So you're going to do
Right.
what you need to do to protect yourself. But, you know, the same way you could take a pill for a virus back in the day, you take a pill for a virus now, and it won't be the end of your life.
And I think too, because you used like back in prior to the evolution of medication and science, people were taking like 80 something pills a day. Now, Lynette was very clear, it's one, maybe sometimes two, depending on what type of medication they're on. But I forgot where I was going with that. Completely forgot where I was going with that. I
But
don't
yeah,
know.
medication has changed. In the beginning, I know people who have been living with HIV for over 30 years. In the beginning, they were taking 17, 18 pills a day. Now they're taking
Yeah,
between 1 and 3 pills a day, depending on the concoction, the mixture that's in the
yeah,
medication. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And
and
sometimes
and
they
they
might use
even
their
have
own.
medication. Yeah, and now they have medication for people who are not living with HIV, who can take the medication if they believe they're in risky behavior or have reasons to worry about contracting the virus. They have a pill called PrEP, and it's pretty much like a birth control pill that you take every day, and
Yeah.
it lowers your chances of contracting the virus as well. So it's
And guess
just so
what?
much.
Guess what? I knew that. And guess how I knew? Guess how I knew?
How you know?
Lynette told me. I remembered.
That's what's up. That's
Lynette
what's up.
educated me on that.
That's
I'm
amazing.
excited.
And education, man, you're educated. You can share not only this, but in personal conversation. Like if someone comes to you and they're experiencing something, you have knowledge, a knowledge base
Yeah,
that you can educate on. And then you can also point people into certain directions too. It's all about community. Once we
it is.
lost that village community mentality in our society, that's when everything started going to crap. And that's where we
Right.
are now, trying
But
to
God
figure
is
out how to bring
aligned.
it back.
Right. But God is now aligning his children, his people. So, Lynette told Lynette, I want to stay connected. I'm actually coming to her November 18th event with two of my girlfriends. Because
Awesome.
yeah, listen, we in there. Okay.
Let's go.
So I appreciate what she's doing. I appreciate what you're doing. I think that, we need to bring back the it takes a village. So no, I am not proficient. I mean, to a little bit, like I knew about the prep because of Lynette, but I'm not really that educated in HIV AIDS. So she can teach me some things so that when certain people come to me in terms of mental health, I can speak to that. I can give them a somewhat guidance. And then, but
Hmm.
I really understand the power and the effect, excuse me, efficacy we could have if we stay connected, right? Because we're
Yes.
just on
Yeah.
two different avenues, but it all remains the same because we're trying to help people, we're trying to educate
Hmm.
people, we're trying to help people level up. But I do have one last question before we go. So because of this evolution in science and medication, well, let me backtrack a little bit. So promiscuity is heightened at all-time high now, and a lot of it is through the music, TV, things of that nature. So people who don't have the proper guidance, proper role models, can take that on, right?
Hmm.
So, and with as much promiscuity that's going on, a lot of people, they're promoting no protection, right? So, because of the evolution in science and medication, do you think that it can actually work against reality in terms of like now people are really going wild out because they feel like, oh, I'll be all right, I just take a pill and I'll be fine? It's no different from chlamydia, or I don't know what people take for it, but do you think
Hmm.
that it could actually work in reverse?
Yep. I definitely think, like all advancements of technology, medication is all a gift and a curse. It's
Yeah.
access to new things, but then it's detrimental to other aspects. So if someone who is out here going willy nilly and they know, all right, I know somebody who is living with HIV, and all they do is take a pill and they good.
Yep.
You have that fear, and then you have the other fear of, okay, I don't know nobody, and I know what I've seen and what I've heard. I don't want it. But then you add drug usage into the mix because they promote that just as much. And
Yep.
so I'm high, I'm drunk, and we having a good time, and you don't even think, your mind doesn't work properly, when you're intoxicated. And so now it's just like, I ain't even know. And then the ignorance come in and the stigma comes in, and I don't even want to know. I don't want to get tested. I don't want to find out because I might. And if I do, then but it's ignorant. It's real.
Yeah.
But it's a gift and a curse, definitely. Because I've
Yeah.
heard people, I've actually heard people in my travels who have said, if I do, I do. I just take a pill and I'm good. But then it's people who are living with the virus, like, no, you don't want this. Like,
That's
yeah, I
scary.
just take a pill, but it's a mental
Yeah, that's
aspect to
scary. Why
this.
would they even say that? Like, why would you want, if you can prevent it to some degree without being
Mhm.
reckless, why would you even say that? Like, ugh,
People
it's
out
bad out
here
here.
are
People are
reckless.
nasty.
People are reckless, and people
Yeah.
will gladly go and have sex with people who are living with HIV knowingly and not even care about it. They don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
People,
especially if that person has a attractive face, it's like, oh, they
or a fake
bad
butt,
though.
or a fat butt.
Yep,
That's
like
all they
they
care
don't
about.
care. They don't care. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's where it comes down. The advancement is a gift and a curse. It has helped because people aren't taking 17, 18, 20 pills a day.
Right.
You can go down to one pill, but then it hurt because people are out here living a little bit more reckless because they just know, like, oh, I'll be all right.
Yeah. It's weird because it's always like no in between. It's either this or it's that. There's no
Mm-hmm.
common ground. You know what I mean?
Nah,
So
nope.
I think that you articulated that very well. Both you and your wife are very inspiring. I want to just say, like, I think you guys are great people. I think you guys are super smart. You're educated, and you're able to convey the education that people need, that the community needs, very well, and that makes all of the difference between someone becoming educated and wanting to know more and wanting to do more and become proactive and knowing their status versus people just remaining in ignorance and being okay with being ignorant. So I
Yes.
thank
Thank you
you.
so
I
much.
thank you for coming. Of course, I thank you so much for coming on. We've been talking about this for a while. Um,
Yes.
we finally got it. Got you and Lynette. So
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
elated. Okay, absolutely elated. Before we go, is there any last comments or thoughts that you would like to leave with the viewers?
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to clear up because it came back to my mind. It was
Mhm.
2012 when, my father and Lynette disclosed to me their status. So yeah, it was
2012.
2012. But outside of that, I will always share, their salvation and transparency. Tell your story. It can not only save someone else's life, it can save your life. We are better people when we are sharing ourselves with others. And, when we're able to get stuff off of our chest, especially as mental health and mindset and all those things come to light, when we're able to get stuff off of our own chest, it frees us
Mhm.
and we can be better people and not only
Yeah,
help other people, but we can help ourselves. So go out there, share your story. It doesn't have to be nothing major, but just go confide in someone. Find someone that you can confide in, and just talk because we all grow when we're in community, and we can actually talk to people.
yeah, and change their minds. I think the biggest part of people going through, having journeys and bad experiences, the fear paralyzes them. I know before I came out as a mental health advocate, like I didn't want to tell people I was suicidal and like all the things I was enduring and going through and the thoughts because that's just not cool. And not that it's not cool, but it's just like that was a
Mm-hmm.
very vulnerable, dark space that I don't want to share with the world. But God had to reassure me that I didn't go through that for nothing. I went through it so
Mm-hmm.
I could now become a voice for people who don't know how to articulate the fact that something's going on and they need help, or educating people on what mental health really is versus what they thought it was, similar to HIV/AIDS. So it
Mm-hmm.
just takes people who's been there and who are confident and again anchored in a higher power to know, like, all right, you can judge me, I really don't care, it's not going to change anything, but your story resonates with the right people and the right people will thank you, and you are actually adding a jewel to your crown. So I thank you so much for
Hey, I thank
coming.
you as well. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you. Next time, we'll see you on My Matters. Bye.